Greetings, and thank you for joining for the reading of Christ's letters. This morning, we're actually continuing with letter 4. And before we begin, if you'd like to read along with me, which I highly recommend, at least for me, I get a lot more when I hear read together. So if you're reading from Christ Returns, Reveal Startling Truth, it's page 158, paragraph 2. Well, let me give you the paragraph we're starting from so you can look for it. If you catch a drop of rain in the palm of your hand, can you say that because this droplet of rain has landed in your hand, and because it has separated from the rest of the rain that is falling to the ground, that the droplet is different in being, chemical composition, and quality of purity or strength from the rest of the rain presently falling around you? So that's where we begin. And if you're reading from Grace Returns, Reveal Startling Truth, it's page 158, paragraph 2. As you hear your read, pause and find it, and then go into the meditation. If you're from Grace Returns, Speaks His Truth in the book form, this is the first edition. It's the second edition that is out and currently not available, but will be available soon, I'm sure. But if you're reading from the original book form of Christ Speaks His Truth, it's 178, paragraph 4. If you're reading from Christ Letter 4, depends when you download these letters from the website that I give you these various readings. So check all the pages. So if you're reading from the second draft, which has more page numbers, the first draft, each letter was contained from 1 through the end. So each new letter began with page 1. So if you're reading from the second draft, is page 113, paragraph 5. If you're reading from Christ Letter 4, the first draft, it's page 5. That's the bottom of the page. And if you happen to be reading, for me, I always go back to the excitement of the earliest days, 2006, when I got in touch with the letters. That would be letter 3A. Christ didn't number them ascending. He had a 3A, he had a 3 and then a 3A, then a 4A and a 4B. So if you're reading from the original manuscript, that's page 7, paragraph 6. And if you're reading from the ebook, from, I think it's Christ Reveals, Christ Has Returned is the website on the Weebly site. That's page 136, paragraph 4. So I'll give you a moment to find your page. And so let's take a moment to just center ourselves for the receiving of these words from Christ. So just take a few deep breaths, comfortable. Allow each breath to bring us to the center of our being. Letting go all thoughts, all doubts, all fears, all concerns, all shoulds and shouldn'ts, can'ts and can'ts. And just be in that stillness and silence that Christ tells us this is where all creation begins, is from that equilibrium, the equanimity of nothing. Some call it the state of the Om. I call it the state of no thing. Stillness and silence. Thinking of the sower preparing the soil for the good seed. And this is what we do. We still our minds. We quiet the intellect, allowing the intellect to be the observer of all that comes to it. We filter out anything but the Christ message. The Christ within us already knows all that it hears, but the intellect gets to observe the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, in accordance with our own filters. Or is that will resonate immediately as reality, as well as that we question or doubt. And at that time, I ask you to pause the recording and take time to meditate, maybe replay a little bit, reread it, and see how it specifically pertains to us in this now moment and a future moment before. We may have some concerns about something in the immediate future, or maybe the long distance future. But something's going to resonate that we need to spend time with. So go to the Christ, come from the Christ within for that guidance and that revelation. For it's personal to each one of us. It comes from the universal to the personal, the individualized. As Christ tells us in the introduction, I have come to speak directly to you, to me, to that part of me universal that is individualized, as that perfect divine expression within. So just allow this connection to be there. So we hear from our inner ear, the Christ ear, that place that says, be still and know, I am God. And then allow the truth to reveal itself. And so we begin with a droplet of rain. In this place of peace and joy and open to understanding even more than we may know. You catch a drop of rain in the palm of your hand. Can you say that because the droplet of rain has landed in your hand, and because it is separated from the rain that is falling to the ground around you, that this droplet is different in being, chemical composition, and quality of purity or strength from the rest of the rain presently falling around you? You may touch a droplet with a green dye and make it green. But can you say that that droplet is entirely different to the rest of the rain falling at that very moment? You of good sense, good will, and good heart, sincere and true, will be able to reply, no, the rain is not different. It is exactly the same in quality and being as the rest of the rain. The only difference is that green or red or blue dye has been added. Therefore, it has become something more than the rain falling around us. But the droplet of rain in the palm of my hand is basically the same as the rest of the rain. Every one of you, no matter who you are, what color your skin you may possess, what kind of hair adorns your head and protects it from the sun, the shape of your head and body, the language you speak, the thoughts you think, the kind of words you use, the actions and deeds you perform as a result of your beliefs and your thoughts. No matter what your physical and human consciousness differences, you are all exactly the same as each other, of the same quality, begotten of the same source of being, having the same potential in infinity, the same spiritual capacities in infinity in every respect. So breathe on that. When we think of the human being, Hugh, by the way, is spirit man. When we think of each of us, we all have a heart and lungs and kidneys and stomach and systems that support us. The red is blood through all of us. Blood is red through all of us. So when we look at our basic structure physically, we're all the same. Now when we add our life consciousness, our Christ being, our Christ awareness to this, now we take on differences. And now we perceive with our eyes, our ears, and we have certain judgments about one another. And it's that judgment that separates us, not the life of us, not the spirit of us, not the God of us, not the Christ consciousness of us that separates us, but how we individualize it and perceive that individualization. I'm white. You may be white, you may be black, you may be yellow, you may be red, you may be anything. You may have what normal humanity calls disabilities, but we are no different in the life that lives us and breathes us, the truth of us. The only difference between every one of you, Muslim Arab, Russian Jew, American Christian, Tibetan Buddhist, Indian Hindu, are the additives which have been pumped into each of you as a result of your genetics derived from your parentage and race, environment, family, upbringing, family resources, poor or wealthy, education, opportunities in life, on and on and on. The divisions go on if we allow. But these are all superficials, like adding dye to the raindrop. These are all superficials. They're additives masking your reality you call your soul, even as dye will mask the truth concerning the drop of water in the palm of your hand. Your soul comes directly from divine consciousness and remains itself pristine, pure, and unified in divine consciousness with all other souls, despite all the additives which have covered and corroded it since birth. What a concept. This is what brings us together in one consciousness. You must also realize that everyone is born with different human capacities to make use of the additives pumped into them at birth. You know, if you have siblings, I'm one of 7 siblings, or one of 7 children. Each one of us has a different perspective on our family upbringing. Some it was joyous and loving and healthy, and others is very abusive and downgraded. Um, how we deal with the life situations with our own perceptions and how we adjust to find that pristine purity within us and one another. You must also realize that everyone is born with differing human capacities to make use of the additives pumped into them at birth. The human capacities to be utilized by each soul depend on the spiritual progress it made in previous lives. So Christ is saying that we have evolution, incarnation after incarnation after incarnation. In each incarnation, we take from our past life the lessons that we learned to enlighten us to the end of that life, to the beginning of our new life. And each time we grow. We don't see it because at death and birth, between that time, we've forgotten everything. So when we come into the new life, we come up with new perspectives, a new family, new society, perhaps, new environment. And that influences what we are now to achieve in this lifetime. So if we're always seeking the truth, as Jesus did in his early days before his desert experience, he just knew what he was told was not right. And so he continued challenging the truths that were given to him about this Jehovah God that punishes the bad, rewards the good, and then the elites are forming more punishment upon the people to make them, quote, perfect by obeying the law, and then purchasing the animals to sacrifice as a forgiveness for their sins so that God could forgive them. And Jesus takes all this, throws it into the trash and says, that's an old belief, that's an old myth. I've come, as I did 2018 years ago, I've come with a new truth, a new God that's the true God. And if you listen to this God, you will have peace in your life. And from that peace that you have, you will contribute to the other seekers of peace and we will all come into the time of peace. Some people climb out of deep holes of disadvantages, depression, and despair, and achieve high positions of trust and respect, wielding much influence over others. And some people fall from dizzy heights of advantage, wealth, opportunity, and talents into black holes of despair and depression, drug taking, murder, rape, and whatever. So some rise to the high levels, don't know how to handle that because they haven't found the truth of their existence. So they fall, and seek something to give them a peace of mind. That peace of mind that drugs or alcohol can allow us to forget about, but it's right there when we come back to, quote, our reality with a small r. Nevertheless, for all that you have each made or not made of your opportunities or your lack of them, you all remain fundamentally and basically of the same beingness and potential. You are all able to rise up little by little from whatever spiritual level of consciousness you presently occupy to the heights of divine consciousness within the celestial kingdoms. I like the experience of tadpole. You know, I had the opportunity of getting an egg case of this gelatinal form with all these seeds in it. It almost looks like grapes without the peel, with a seed in it. And it's a collection of them. And they're all like these bubbles with a seed. And the seed begins shimmering, and they come into tadpoles. And as we know, the tadpoles have gills, and it has a tail, and it eats. And I was fortunate enough to release a lot of those, just keep a few in my aquarium, and I watched them develop from the tadpole into the frog. And so I could see the tail disappear, the frog, the legs start appearing. And I started removing water and creating a space where they had water and they had land to go on. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience while I was in Boy Scouts. But this is what Christ is talking about. We can see this evolution. We see it in people. We see it in ministers and people that we just respect. And not all ministers are respected. Some get into a high place. I call myself the irreverent reverend because I'm just a normal human being. And Jesus was just a normal human being. And we see Jesus as normal, and we see everyone as normal because everyone is normal to ourselves. Now we start appreciating our differences, but we're seeing that quality of life that each has. Within that tadpole is the frog. The tadpole doesn't have to do anything to become the frog. It's all automatic. Within us is Christ. It's automatic that we're going to unfold to become the expression of Christ as Jesus showed us, and Muhammad and Buddha and other teachers and masters around our world. It's within every one of us, as one of the songs goes. So Christ encourages us. You know, the tadpole, the idea is within it to become the frog. The Christ idea is within us, regardless of what idea you might call it, what name you may give it. This isn't about Jesus and Christ. This is about the God aspect, that God idea within us, that we as humans can evolve ourselves from this idea, and everything to nurture and nourish this idea to come into form will come. So Christ has come in 2000 to give us these letters, this nourishment and nurturement to bring us into the expression of this form, to bring the idea into expression. As you accept these letters as being the truth of existence and seek daily to live the guidelines which bring each of you into harmony and contact with that which gave you being, you will surely move towards and achieve the highest spiritual goals you have set yourself at this present time. So always have a higher goal than now. For me, Jesus is that. I keep seeing the way I perform in my life. Is this how I see Jesus doing it? Is this the true potential of me? Or is it something even more? So I read the letters daily. I meditate daily. So the daily I contact this divine consciousness. It seems without me, but it's really that within me, seeking the greater, the bigger, the more, the understanding that frees me from the limitations of my joy, my happiness. You can all rise to the point where you fully accept the truth. Work to purify your personal consciousness in order to absorb divine consciousness and become individuals filled with and radiate the power of divine consciousness in your immediate surroundings and eventually throughout the world. So I begin with me and with you. And the energy of us is not contained in the body, it's infinite. So I allow myself to imagine the life of me expanding to the skin of me and going beyond the skin where it meets itself as the infinite wholeness, which is never separate, never separate. But I just imagine this life form going out, going out, filling the room I'm in, filling the ceiling, the walls, the floor. And I know that's still a seeming boundary as is the skin. So I see it go beyond the walls, beyond the ceiling, beyond the floor. Out, beyond my neighborhood, beyond my city, beyond the state, the province I'm in, beyond the country I'm in. We are infinite in this intelligence, this awareness. It does not stop, it has no walls, because the energy that we're talking about becomes the energy of the wall, and therefore there's no barrier to it. It just transmutes and transitions beyond, transcends, keeps on going. So, interesting. You are all important within your immediate environment. I am who I think I am, and that limits me to who I am. If I think I'm greater than I am, if I think I am the Christ fully manifested, that's my goal, that's my desire, that's my potential, then I will constantly be nourished and nurtured. That's why reading the letters over and over and over and over, or any book of truth, Science of Mind, Illusions, another great by Richard Bach, all these examples encourages us to don't be limited to who and where I think I am now. No, I'm more than this, and the more than this I become. The parent who feels that all that is done for the family is not appreciated. Okay, so sometimes we get into this place where I feel not appreciated. That's great because that's at work. Everything like this for me becomes a motivator of where I think I am versus where I am. So I allow myself to go to the thought above the thought to that Christ thought, that truth, that beingness. It's already within me. I keep going out, but it's in seeking it without that I find it within. So the parent who feels that all that is done for the family is not appreciated, who feels that he or she does not make an impact on family life, is never heard, respected, loved, who feels that outside the home or in the workplace, he or she is of no consequence and will not be missed, is lacking insight. Such a person, be they male, female, father, mother, friend, worker, employer, all make an impact on the environment, good or bad. We all make an impact. If they were removed from it, there would be a hole in the fabric of the environment. There'd be a loss, and it would take time for that gap to be filled in with the arrival of someone else and by the new attitudes of those left behind. A void is left by the biggest power and voice, doer of good, or the most menial work of sweeping the floor or garden paths. Each one inhabits a special place in the whole environment. Each one brings their own talent, their own character, their own way of doing things, their own impact on the people they speak to the place where they live. They are vital in their own niche. I grew up with tropical fish. Dad was very good about, he had a hobby, ichthyologist, and he was it to the max. And so I saw all these fish in a community tank, all living together. Yes, some picked at one another. I have a bird feeder with birds, and they sometimes compete with one another for the food, but they don't hold that grudge. You know, when one is shown to move away, it comes right back to a different place and continues feeding. And that conflict that existed before is totally annihilated. It no longer exists. No one can rob a person of their importance except the person himself by his denial of his value. Once we have self-esteem, once we have that joy, once we have that awareness of who we truly are, no one can take that away. Many stories about that. No matter if a person is born handicapped, they still have their unique place of importance in the family, the environment. Sometimes they occupy a greater position of importance than if they had been born whole and perfect. Their achievements arouse wonder and respect. The impact they make on the environment depends entirely on their will to be, their will to act, their will to radiate goodwill, their will to make the most of their opportunities, their will to be special for people by making other people feel better than they did before the contact took place. And I'm sorry if you've heard me talk about my friend Ed Turner before, but I have to talk about my friend Ed Turner. There's a man, if you see him in the mall, you're going to see, you'd probably feel sorry for him because he's a person with cerebral palsy. He lives in while he's awake, his awake life is spent in a wheelchair, motorized wheelchair. But a most beautiful man, patient, has a very strong speech impairment, but with patience and concentration and focus, it's easy to understand him. And his patient says, don't think you understand what I'm saying. Don't finish my sentences for me. Ask me what I'm saying until you fully understand what I'm saying. So the point I want to make from this is he had a position with the Independent Living Centers, which is an organization to bring resources to people with disabilities, any type of disability, bring resources to them so that they can be independent. So in this organization he worked for, because of his disabilities, his co-workers weren't people with disabilities, they were able-bodied, they're called. And so they would go and present the budget to the officials, the board, the localities that make the budgets. And, people with disabilities, these type of social needs are the first ones that are cut when the budgets have to be narrowed down. So they would have to fight with these, there are names for them, I think they're supervisors in our locality, Virginia anyway, that's what they're called. They're called supervisors for how we disperse the funds for this particular locality. So they would have to go and ask for this funding so that they could assist people with disabilities. It felt I'll never be called, but one day his boss called him in. He said, I want you tomorrow to go and present our budget to the supervisors. And I was like, no, I can't do that. I can't speak clearly. They're not going to understand me. And his boss basically said, make it happen, So Ed talks about, so he went there the next day and he prepared a speech and he was kind enough. He accommodates people. He wanted them to be able to understand them. So since he felt they couldn't understand him, he would write it all out, type it all up. So when he went before them, before it was his turn, he said, here are the supervisors waving at all their constituents and they're talking to each other while people are presenting things. They would be having their sub-conferences of what this means to them. But he said, but when it came his time to speak, and he rolled up to the platform with the microphone that had to be adjusted for him. The whole place quieted. His disability became an asset. They focused totally 100% on hearing what Ed was saying. Even though they had the script in front of them, they listened intently to what Ed was saying. They heard his love. They heard his passion. They heard his truth of being, and they paid attention. So he remarks on how this disability became an asset for him. We all have assets, and that's all Christ is calling upon us, is use the assets we have. We are all truth of being at the depth of our being. So be it to the best of our ability, and look for it in one another. Okay, so that's my story of Ed Turner and how disabilities can be an asset. And if you're a person with a disability, I have a disability called dyslexia. They didn't recognize it as a child, so I had a tough time in school. And Ed has many stories about his times in school as well. But we all have that truth of existence within us. My disability is playful for me, and you'll hear it as I read. I switch words or I say things differently. I laugh at them because I find them hilarious. Okay, back to the text. Every condition arises out of will which is expected at all times. Some have been born with great willpower, others with less. But the moment that a person, excuse me while I clear my throat again. Thank you. A drink of water. Clearing is completed. So every condition arises out of the will which is exercised at all times. Some have been born with great willpower, others with less. But the moment that a person fully realizes that all willpower has been drawn from universal consciousness and willpower can be increased by calling on one source of being for increased willpower. So does a person begin to realize that willpower is not limited. It can be drawn according to the magnitude and strength of one's faith from universal consciousness itself. I smoked cigarettes for years, from like age 14 till age 49. Okay, so for those 35 years, I smoked cigarettes. The early years, I wasn't inhaling. Once I learned to inhale and cough, gag and all that, then I had the habit. I had quit many times, but the last time I quit, January 1st, 1979, the way I stopped was this. When I get the urge, I just said, I think I'll wait a minute. And that's all I did. So moment after moment after moment, anytime the desire came, that's all I said. I'm going to wait a moment. My ego was happy. I wasn't saying I'm quitting. I wasn't saying I'm never going to smoke again. I just said, I think I'll wait a minute. So this is how the willpower and the strength, all the times I stopped before was a struggle, no, I'm not going to smoke. No, I'm not going to smoke. No, I'm not going to have that cigarette. Oh boy, I wish I had a cigarette. So that went on and on and on. But once I tapped into the divine consciousness, it gave me the exact tool. For some, it may be a pill, a patch, a doctor, a recovery program, whatever it takes. But something, if we're truly committed to anything we desire, the alcoholic, any addiction, I believe through these letters, any addiction can be overcome if we just read the letters. Grace tells us a few times through the letters, keep doing what you're doing. You don't have to change anything. I'm not here to give you a religion or a new moral code. I'm just here to give you the truth of being. And as we feed and nurture and nourish ourselves with this truth, time after time after time, the truth of us now comes into its full force of nature. The tadpole wanting to desire to be a frog no longer has a desire because it is the frog. Once we are the manifested Christ of our being, we are fully manifested, and we no longer have the even the temptations that come before us. The time to keep the temptation from coming into form is to avoid the temptation. So I avoid it with, I think, oh, wait a minute. I didn't have a pack in my pocket. Some people pay tricks, you know. As long as I have the opportunity to have it, to say no, I'm healed, you know. But mine was different, and it'll be different for each of us. But all the point is that we have this willpower within us, and when we call upon it, the thought above the thought we're thinking, the thought above I don't want a cigarette to the thought of the desire is no longer there, poof, it's no longer there. So each and every one of each gender, every race, every nation, every religion, every level of resources and income, from the pauper to the king, is equally important in the moment of now, in the moment of the end of day. True differences only arise from what each person gives of himself to this moment, the next moment, and the rest of the day. A king or prime minister can be remembered for his goodness, the benefits he brought to his country, or for the misery he imposed on the people. Similarly, a man born into an unimpoverished family, who may not have developed his abilities to any high level, but who gave his all and his service to his environment, will eventually be as revered as kin and friends, and in the next life reap of his sowing as does the king or prime minister. Such a person will have contributed life to his environment, because the nature such a person will have contributed life to his environment, because the nature of life force is unconditional love and service, work and harmony, giving whatever is necessary for fulfillment of the needs of. If each day your life force is spent in just giving a cup of tea to people who are sick, then let that life force be spent in its highest form as eager willingness to walk to the patient with a warm smile and hand over the tea with kindness, goodwill, and a desire for the healing of the person. In such a way, the tea giver can become a radiant medium of healing and upliftment. The more frequently the tea giver calls silently for an inflow of divine consciousness into her own consciousness, the greater and more penetrating will be her radiated life force to the patient. The sick person may not be aware of what is happening, but a room of sick people attended by such a tea giver or carer will recover more swiftly than those who receive their tea from one who hands it to them without a glance of recognition, without a word, without a kindly thought. We do much just by being ourselves, and we do that by being in our truth, you know, in our calm and serene way. No, each job, each moment can be sacred and beautiful, radiant with the inflow of divine consciousness, life force, uplifting healing to the self and others. If a person takes time to realize that she is a channel or conduit of divine consciousness, which is itself all healing, all protection, all fulfillment of a person's every need. As we take it within ourselves, we automatically radiate it from within because we first have touched it. One person, even one who cleans the floors and empties bedpans, possessing such a realization, can enter a room and become the most important, perhaps the only, distributor of good amongst 6 people handing out bedpans. Such a person can leave behind a legacy of increased strength in every patient. Every single person who realizes that from their eyes is radiating potent life force to those at whom the vision is directed, can know that their glance, that penetrating look, that smiling gaze, has benefited the one who received it. Not that that's our goal, it's just automatic filter. My daughter is one of these people who all the people that she cares for, she's a caregiver, and all the people that she cares for just love her. She's the one that takes time to listen and the patience to do and heed their needs. Everything we, yes, you and I, the Christ, think and do is an act of consciousness, and consciousness is life force. The activity of our minds, yours and mine, we shape our consciousness, our life force into different forms, which bless or curse the environment. The only difference between you and Muhammad and myself, known on earth as Jesus, is a kind of thought and feeling that Muhammad and I radiate to others. We both radiate life-giving consciousness energy to the world. What are you radiating to your world? Remember again, during a time of great stress during my time in Palestine, I cursed the fig tree, and it shriveled to its roots. Not long afterwards, I was also roundly cursed by Roman soldiers and Jewish priests alike. I too was shriveled to my roots before I died on the cross. Beware what you hand out to others. Make certain that you would like to receive the same. Okay, so I didn't read that with the emphasis. I would like to reread it with. Beware what you hand out to others. Make certain that you would like to receive the same. A cup of water handed to someone with love can bless and uplift that person, or if handed out with ill feeling, can make the recipient feel small and of no account, a little weaker and more depressed. What part are you playing in your environment? Are you honored and recognized for the love and goodwill you distribute the moment you set foot in your workplace? Have you caught a vision of what is really important in life? Have you set yourself a spiritual plan, a spiritual goal to be achieved before you pass on to the next beautiful dimension? And that's why I like to tell people when I first met Jesus, that's what I wanted to become. You know, people have idols, people have mentors. And I didn't want to become like Jesus. That's kind of what the church teaches us, to be like Jesus. No, I want to be Jesus. I want to be the consciousness of Jesus. I want the relationship with the Father Jesus has. And to have the same love and respect for my fellow man, beginning with the respect and love I have for myself. Will you be sufficiently purified and committed to unconditional loving to move into the higher levels of spiritual consciousness? Or will your goals still be those of your earth plane? Success, bank manager, the highest you can be for the highest pay. There's more to life than that. Ask yourself, what part do I really want to play in my life? What is my spiritual dimension? Destination. What is my spiritual destination? I've added the first person. I do this occasionally. When I read the letters, when Jesus is talking to you, and I feel I want to take it personally, I take it to the I, that I ask myself, what part do I really want to play in my environment? What is my spiritual destination? Just as importantly, what are my attitudes towards other people? Superiority or exclusivity, or an awareness that most people are doing the best they can with whatever talents they possess. To reach your full potential, you must realize that neither position nor wealth can limit the power you exercise in your world. Your only limitations are your attitudes and your thoughts arising from your attitudes. The life force radiating from the mind of king, prime minister, general, a lowly servant or soldier is equally powerful and productive of good in the environment, providing each one disciplines his or her thoughts to become attuned to the spiritual frequencies of unconditional love and divine consciousness. Furthermore, such thoughts enter and enhance the world consciousness forces itself. Each person Adding their spiritual thought to world spiritual thought strengthens it. Mm. We've heard a bad apple can ruin the barrel. Well, a good thought can purify the thoughts around us. The only factor which determines the degree of imparting of life or sickness propensities is a level of realization and spiritual understanding that a person has drawn from the source of being. If I'm involved in lower thought consciousness, that's what I attract, and that's what supports me and brings me into my being. Therefore, the man or woman who happily removes the neighborhood refuse with a good heart and a blessing on all whom he meets is a bright light shining in his little, and the money-grasping, ill-tempered man of wealth and substance, emerging from his mansion to go to his office, is a pool of darkness which can be felt negatively by those who venture near him. And I know you experience that as I do. We know those of lower consciousness. Although to walk the Christ way, we're not even aware of that because our radiation of love light is so strong that that lower energy doesn't even penetrate this energy mindset. No matter what you do, what you possess, the position you occupy in life, there is no limit to your potential development for good. There is no limit to the potential grandeur and glory of your being. Your only limitation is the amount of time and energy you're prepared to devote to meditate on your source of being and opening your human consciousness to enter into it and receive it into your mind. So now you've heard that. Now just close your eyes and listen to the collective I. No matter what I do, what I possess, the position I occupy in life, there is no limit to my potential development for good. There is no limit to the potential grandeur and glory of my being. My only limitation is the amount of time and energy I am prepared to devote to meditating on my source of being and opening my human consciousness to enter into it and receive it into my mind. Therefore, religious leaders, revere your congregations, because you do not know what spiritual insight and progress is taking place in the minds of those who may appear to be very humble and of no account socially. Religious leaders, cease your criticism of other religions, because you do not know the heights of spiritual knowledge, insight, and enlightenment their adherents may have attained. Religious leaders, realize that you yourselves are only as spiritually advanced as is your personal perception of reality. If you have no perception of what lies beyond the veil of the material world, you may be religious, but you do not have the spiritual consciousness. Very limiting factor. This is where religion and spirituality differentiate, where the discernment comes. Because religion keeps us bound in a limited concept of God. Spirituality recognizes everything spiritual. There's nothing that is not spiritual when we're in this realm. If you have no perception of what lies beyond the veil of your material world, you may be religious, but you do not have a spiritual consciousness. This is the true ideal, the true aspiration, the highest goal, to understand and experience the reality behind and within all things, giving them their individual being. You may call the reality God, Allah, Jehovah, infinite intelligence, divine mind, divine consciousness, or the Tao. All these names mean the source of your being, your creative origins. So don't let the name separate us one from another just because of the name or what the the name the adherent is following. No, we are all seeking the highest source of our being. That's what we look for in one another, knowing whatever channel or path we're on is the right one for the individual. You can have no higher aspiration than this, to understand and experience the reality behind and within all things, giving, maintaining, and sustaining all individual being. Spirituality is spirituality. It doesn't happen. It just is the highest source, that from which all things come. And when we recognize that, we can see Hitler as a divine being. That characteristic or nature resides in all of us. If we choose to um, nurture and nourish that, as we see in many of our society, we have many Hitlers, we have many um, vampires sucking the energy, life force from others around it. But when there's no more for them to suck on, like the Christ-natured people, they're going to starve themselves to no life. So this is why all we have to do is focus on being the Christ. And those that have a desire to feed on this nutriment, like the weeds in the field, if we take their life force away, which is what the Roundup and those other pesticides do, they take their life force away. It's not they kill them, they take away the life force. They keep them from being nurtured, and therefore they die. They wither. So you can have no higher aspiration than this, to understand and experience the reality behind and within all things, giving, maintaining, and sustaining all individual being. The life force is one. It nurtures and nourishes all of its forms. This is the goal presented to you by every enlightened teacher who has come to Earth. We all share the same vision, the same realization and understanding. Such teachers are held in high esteem, but few of their followers understood what they were being taught. Each man placed his own interpretation of the teacher's words. Each man's interpretations arose out of his personal conditioning and their own bias. When I share these understandings to you from myself, I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm offering to you what works in my life, and try them out and see if they work in yours. And I'm not telling you this is what Christ is saying. This is my individualization of what Christ is saying to me, and I'm guided to pass on to say to you from the Christ of me. In your personal lives, remember at all times that your thoughts, words, deeds not only have a bearing on your future life, but also affect the people with whom you are related to in any moment. So I'm going to again put that to the eye. In my personal life, remember at all times that my thoughts, my words, my deeds not only have a bearing on my future life, but also affect the people who are around and related with me at any moment. What are you, employer or employee, personally contributing to the successful operation? What are you, employer or employee, personally contributing to the successful operation of the business in which you earn your daily bread, be it factory, farm, shop, or professional office? What are you giving to your employees or fellow workers in well-being and good feeling? What are you doing for the entire building? For the building, you may ask in amazement. But I repeat, what are you doing for your building, your vehicles, your entire business ventures? Everything, bricks, mortar, steel, glass, paper, metal, tires, engines, and petrol, is permeated with the consciousness you exude as you go about your daily affairs. That is the reason why some people leave a trail of destruction behind them, because they have an ill-humoured, irritable, critical, destructive consciousness, and others keep their possessions intact and looking newer for years because they appreciate and cherish them daily. As we appreciate, we are sending that love energy to all that we appreciate. If you find trouble happening with your electronics, your cell phone, your computers, your iPhones, your telephones, your vehicles, your relationships, everything comes from what am I radiating? What am I radiating? Because that's what's coming back to me. What I give out comes back. It's like the waves of the ocean. It ebbs and flows, ebbs and flows. Everything on your earth is the energy of consciousness made visible, be it in the form of solid, inanimate matter or living plasma. With your thoughts, you feed or destroy whatever is in your environment. What are you doing to your family, home, and environment? Again, I'm going to go back to the first person. I want to just encourage you as you read these letters or even listen to them. Put it into the first person. Own it. Everything on my earth is the energy of consciousness made visible, my consciousness, be it in the form of solid, inanimate matter or living plasma. With my thoughts, I feed or destroy whatever is in my environment. What am I doing in my family, my home, and my environment? Am I grumbling, denigrating, destructive in thought towards my work and other people? Then rest assured I'm leaving a little trail of destruction, destructive consciousness behind, which I will surely reap, erode all that penetrates and imbues. If I focus on the desire to love, to accept, to work with gladness in my heart, then everywhere I go, I am shedding a consciousness of strength, blessing, and growth. When I was on earth in Palestine, I was dealing with Orthodox Jews who believed in and upheld codes of conduct so rigid they bordered on cruelty. Their traditional laws were inhibiting, depressing, confining, and ridiculous. I brought to these people a new vision of an eternal Father, which was both transcendent to themselves and yet everywhere present, ever aware of their needs and of such universal love that they could rest assured it was always the Father's will to fulfill those needs. I told the people to look around them, look at the countryside, at the hills where sheep and goats grazed in peace, at the lakes filled with fish, and at the birds flying in the air and resting and nesting in trees, and the flowers so gorgeously clothed in many colors. I told them, look, understand what you are seeing. You are seeing a world where everything has its needs and everything has those needs fulfilled. How can you doubt when you see the sheep living entirely on grass? What does the grass contain that it feeds fleece, bone, blood, and flesh, and produces young? Are you not witnessing a marvelous supply? Look at the needs of birds, how wonderfully they are provided for. They have shelter in trees and seeds for strength. As for people who have their needs of housing, food, and clothes, the Father has given them the entire world from which to fulfill their needs. Muhammad, after enlightenment, perceived the same indwelling universal spirit, both existent and active in all things. We, Muhammad and I, spoke to our fellow countrymen of the same inspired truth and asked them the same kind of questions. Is such an all-knowing Father, Allah, divine consciousness, not also aware of your deeper needs, your needs of love, health, and prosperity? How can you doubt this? Only have faith, and your needs will be supplied according to your faith. It is your lack of faith which withdraws energy from the natural flow of Father, Allah, love in your bodies, relationships, and lives. So often in despair when unearthing the persona of Jesus, I exclaimed, would that I could tell you and show you and make you see how it is that the Father knows your needs. Would I could show you how you yourselves contribute to the making of your own tomorrows and the tomorrows of all those who surround you. If only I could help you see that you truly reap as you sow. If only you could see the truth of existence as I saw it when in the desert of Palestine. You would know then that your thoughts and actions grow in magnitude and strength day by day and take on outer form exactly as the seeds of plants go into the earth and grow, taking on ever greater outer form of stems, trunks, leaves, and fruit as each day passes after another. I could show you how important you are every second of the day in the fabric of your home, your work, and your country. I long to help you see how your thoughts are the origin of all your good and evil. They are the very ground of your good and evil. If it be that evil comes to you, do not look at your neighbor to see from whence has come that evil. Look within your own hearts and see when last you were at odds with someone destructively by slander, falsifying truth, rejection, criticism. That was the moment of the birth of your present grief. You have been told that you must wrest an eye from whomever takes your eye. But I tell you this is foolish. If you have your eye gouged out from its socket, and you likewise take your opponent's eye, you will probably find yourself shortly without a hand and leg. Better to stand back, still, raise your mind and heart to the Father, Allah, divine consciousness, and pray for help and healing and protection from any greater calamity. And pray too for your adversary, because any ill feeling you have towards him will surely draw more pain and distress towards yourself. Forgive him and pray for him, and you will bring into your being blessings for yourself. Not because you have pleased the Father, Allah, and done the right thing, but because your consciousness will attract blessings into your experience. Be truly blessed yourself as you pray for blessings for others. Let not this be your motive, otherwise the blessing is tainted by your self-regard. Always, in any situation when you are threatened, stop, stand, be still, turn and call on the Father, divine consciousness for help, and watch the deliverance. It will surely come. Back in the day before railroad crossings, they had the cross signs that said, stop, look, and listen. And that's what Christ is reminding us here. Stop, listen, and then act. There was only one person in my life. I'm going to stop here in this reading. We'll pick up next week. But I had this one person in my life I absolutely hated because he treated me as a slave, as a worthless doer of all of his needs. And I just had nothing good to think about him. He was just abusive, emotionally, mentally abusive to me. He saw me as a lowlife to do his bidding in the workplace. And so fortunately, I had a Christian Scientist as an office mate at the time. And he told me to pray for him. I said, pray for him? Why would I pray for him? And he convinced me that, yeah, okay, so I'll try it. I decided that night before I went to sleep, I would pray for this person. And I was amazed that the prayer, I don't know how I can express it, but when we pray for someone for healing, it was just amazing what came to me. This is what Christ is saying here. Instead of seeing him as my adversary anymore, I'm praying for someone, not selfishly. I was just praying for a different attitude toward him or a different attitude from him. But there was no expectation of it. I was just praying for something good to come from the prayer. Well, sometime later, and it may be because of prayer, it's the way prayer can work. he quit, and it may be because of the prayer. Maybe he was guided from my prayer, something opened in him, said, I'm no longer happy here, so he left. But anyway, in the moment, we can stop and listen to the divine. And the divine is always there to guide us, to give us the words, to give us the feeling, to give us the nurturement and nourishment to handle it. So thank you for listening. I know it's been a long lesson. I apologize for its length, and yet it's been uplifting for me. So I trust that it's also uplifted you. So just keep reading the letters and keep seeking that truth within you as everything. And I will see you next week. God bless you. God bless you. And God blesses all of us. Have a good week, a good year. Bye bye.